Welcome to Breaking into Hollywood and our regular Tuesday night special with another special guest. Can't wait to introduce you to Jeanne Bowerman. First of all, I want to tell you a couple things. Last week we did 2 shows, so if you missed either of those or any of the past shows that we've done, you can catch them on our YouTube channel. We've just placed the address into the comment box here. Last week we had David Garrett, a director, a producer, and a writer who had a lot of great things to say about age. It really kicked off that subject, that age is not an issue if you want to be a writer. If you've ever thought that is a problem for you, go watch his show. You're going to come out feeling a lot better about yourself. We also did a show last week, a special extra one, on the technical aspects of Google+, because we use Google+ a lot with Breaking into Hollywood, and you can get so much out of it as a community of you guys as a group. So we had Mike Holton, who's our social media manager, come on and explain how Google+ works. So go see that if you missed that. That ties perfectly into our guest tonight. Jeanne, in her biography, I just love her because she calls herself a screenwriter therapist. I think that is absolutely fantastic and probably something all of us need. And one of the things she says is she consults with writers to strengthen their online and offline relationships, as well as identifying the fear that blocks them from writing success and personal peace. Now, that sounds like something that everyone can take something away from. So let me introduce you over to Gary Goldstein, who will bring in the lovely Jeanne. Thank you, Gary. How are you?
Thank you, Bethan. I am just peachy, nifty, wonderful, thank you. And all the more so because I'm with 2 exquisite women. It doesn't get any better. So let me introduce our guest, because I'm wagging my tail. We're excited, the royal we, all my personalities are excited. And I'm going to read you, I got to start by reading you what appears on Jeanne's Twitter page. Writer of things, quitter of nothing, believer of self. I think that pretty much sums it all up right there. But her official bio, Jeanne Veillette, am I saying that correctly? Veillette?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're having a storm alert going off, so sorry, okay. I apologize.
We are going to monitor the weather in upstate New York. We're not aware what the show was really about this evening. So Jeanne Veillette Bowerman, the editor and online community manager of Script Magazine, and a webinar instructor for the Writers Store, co-founder of the weekly Twitter Screenwriters Chat #ScriptChat, which I never knew. Very cool.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's amazing, and I didn't know that you were the power behind that throne. It's amazing.
Oh, we have a team of our little tree fort team that does it. It's a great community.
Love that. And Jeanne also wrote the narrative adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize-winning book Slavery by Another Name. She co-wrote that with its author Douglas A. Blackmon, a former senior national correspondent of the Wall Street Journal. As a scriptwriter therapist, Jeanne consults with writers on how to strengthen their online and offline networks, as well as identifying the fears that block them from writing success and personal peace. You can find out more about her. In fact, you must. It's not you can. You must go to Jeanne, and that's JEANNE, like on the screen. I should have noticed it's right there on the screen. JeanneVB.com. That is one of her own personal hangouts. Her blog, her vlog, and you've got to see, there's a video on success on that site that you all must watch. That is required homework. And there's her blog. I've read 15 or more blog posts by Jeanne in the last several days, and I will tell you, it does not get any better. So with that said, the one other line I love is on your, what is this, LinkedIn? Yeah, freelance writer who never backs down from a challenge. So anyway, meet one of my favorite and relatively new best friends forever, Jeanne Bowerman. Welcome.
Oh, great to be here, Gary.
So, Jeanne, you and I have spent probably in total several hours over the last week chatting about all things relevant. And so we're gonna jump around tonight, and please feel free to chime in. Jeanne is a fount of wisdom and strategy, and she's been through the wars, and she's here to talk about it. So let's dive in. I mean, you talk a lot about, in fact, there was a blog about your this wonderful screenplay, Slavery by Another Name, and the process it took to get to it. You talk a lot about getting through fear, getting over fear. In fact, you told me that you gave fear up for Lent.
Yes.
And so this is a big theme for you. Maybe we should start with that. Maybe you know, there were some lines in there about how this plagued you for years.
Yeah, it did. You know, like when I remember when we talked about ageism, what David was talking about the other day.
Yeah.
When I turned 40, I thought, you know, I'm a 40-year-old woman with a stay-at-home mom with no kids at home. My kids are both in school, and I thought, you know, what is it I want to do for a living and do with my life? Not even for a living, just like what do I want to do with my life at the end of my life, and I'm about to take my last breath. You know, like I just don't want to say what if. And at that time, I was so identified by being a stay-at-home mom. And before that, I had run a motel and restaurant for 15 years, which is a whole other topic.
Wow. Wow.
And so this is definitely, screenwriting and writing in general is definitely like a reinvention of myself. But when and I'd always wanted to write a book. And when I was in college, I went to Cornell and I went to the hotel and restaurant school there, and I had to take a couple writing classes. And I had this professor who was trying to convince me to change my major and switch over to writing. And he took me out to lunch. He loved my work. He took me out to lunch trying to convince me. And I was 19 years old. And I looked at him, and I will never forget this day. And I said, "But why would anyone want to read anything I have to say?" And that fear of why would someone want to read something I have to say, or that I couldn't say anything important enough for people to read, and also the fact that writing at that point in my life just felt like one big term paper. You know, like why would I want to keep doing that? So I ran from it, and I did, you know, the thing that was safe, the thing that people had told me I was supposed to do. You know, this is what you're supposed to go to hotel school. This is what you're supposed to do. So it wasn't until I became 40 that I thought, you know what, I'm going to try it. But even then, I couldn't find any sort of level of success until I really started to believe in myself. And Slavery by Another Name was a huge part of that. You know, pursuing that project was a huge part of facing my fears, because I was still doing and writing the things other people wanted me to write, and I wasn't writing what I wanted to write and what really spoke to me until I, you know, picked up that phone and called Doug Blackmon and just, you know, made it happen. But I had to put all the fear aside in order to do that, because I was really my own worst enemy. Like I was paralyzing myself, being stuck, thinking about it, you know, people judging me, and what is this white girl from upstate New York, what could she possibly bring to the subject of slavery post-Civil War, you know, in Montgomery, Alabama. But for me, it was, I think everybody at some point in their life, and I don't mean to equate my life or my experience with that which these people had suffered through, but at any point in somebody's life, you can at least relate to that sensation and that feeling of feeling trapped and like you're not in control or empowering your own life. And for me, that was like the thing that I tapped into. But in order to pursue that and to achieve that goal, I have really had to figure out a way to not be fearful. And I think once I figured that out, and then when I started my Ramblings by Recovering Superheroholic blog, it was about really continuing to push myself as a writer to expose as much as I could and be as fearless as possible in my writing, because that's when I would get a reaction from people, that they were moved by my words. And so that positive reinforcement from my readers just made me go farther and farther and farther.
Right.
Was there something in particular, I'm sorry, was there something in particular that really helped you get over that fear?
I think it was just wanting it so badly. Like I think it was this specific project, like just wanting it so badly. And for the first time in my life, it took me 6 months to get Douglas to agree to let me adapt it. And it was the very first time in my life that I did not take no for an answer. And I think I really can say that it was just this project. And then once I did it with that project, I was able to apply it to everything else in life. Because once you do something once, there's like no going back. Like you've already broken the seal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
That
Once
resonates with you, Gary. Yes.
Yeah, no, when you wrestle the demon
Yeah.
and you come out the far side, and a project, I mean, here it's interesting because this wasn't just any rights, bundle of rights that you were chasing. This was a Pulitzer Prize winning Wall Street Journal respected national correspondent, Douglas Blackmon.
Well,
And
and
he,
at the time, it hadn't won the Pulitzer yet.
okay, but
It won the
regardless,
Pulitzer while we were working on it.
amazing. But here you have a nationally recognized, respected, a journalist
Hmm.
who was not exactly, I mean, there are a lot of people you pick up the phone, you call, and they go, oh my God, you're calling me. No, he was the opposite. He was not exactly rolling over with his paws in the air saying,
I
pet
know.
my belly, of course you can have the rights. He was the opposite. He sort of really took you to task, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And I think that that's like the important thing, like with when writers, when you're pursuing some sort of a project, is your passion. And I remember him saying this to me, like, you are totally, I mean, totally unqualified to write this at that stage of my career. And but he said your passion, like, don't discount how much your passion matters. And that I just kept at it, like kept writing sample scenes and writing the outline, and I would just keep sending him things. And he even told me, like, I wanted to say no to you. Like, I did not want to say yes to you. I thought Paul Haggis, he thought Paul Haggis would call him, or Oprah would call him, or somebody else would call him who actually had some street cred and could get something done, and I just came to the table with sheer determination and made it impossible for him to say no. And I hope he's still happy with that decision. I think he is, But yeah, it was really cool to like deliver that product for him. Like after I wrote the first draft, I remember, him calling me up the first time he read through the whole thing, just like, wow, this is really the vision that I had in my head, and you get it. And then he felt like, okay, I'd made the right choice, and it's been a great partnership.
Well,
We are, if you don't mind me jumping in, we are getting questions about overcoming your fear, which makes sense
Oh,
of what
yeah.
we're talking about.
this is going to be right up there with age as a theme.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Carol Ann is asking top 3 things you did to conquer your fears. So were there things besides the one project that you weren't going to have no said to you? Were there books that you read, or writing things that you did?
Yeah, doing. There were some things I did, like just writing down a list of stuff that, like, this is something anybody can do. Like writing down a list of what is the worst thing that can happen. Like if you do X thing that you're afraid of, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then you realize that things that are the worst things that could happen really aren't that bad. And really the other question I always ask myself is, like, if I'm fearful of doing something and I'm not doing it, and I'm still stuck in some sort of pattern, I'll say to myself, so how's that working for you? Because it's not working. And so as soon as you really realize, okay, I've been doing this because it's familiar and safe, but it is not working, and it is not going to change unless I take that leap that I'm scared to take, but at least it'll be different. It may not be what you expect it completely to be, but it will never be what you just stepped away from that you were not happy in. So it's going to change the dynamics a little bit, and then every time you do that, it gets a little bit easier. And the third thing I did was martial arts.
Oh.
Once I am a third-degree black belt, and I remember for my first-degree black belt test was where I wrote that article that I don't know if Gary read it, but it was called Kicking Fear's Ass. And it was about training for my first black belt test. And I had tore my ACL 9 months earlier. That morning of my black belt test, I got a bad mammogram. They needed me to come back they found something on it. I mean, and this was during that time where I gave up fear for Lent. And what I did was I sort of, whether you're Catholic or non-religious, whatever it is, I symbolically put the fear like in a little box over here. And for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to let God handle that fear so I can just handle the problem. And during that black belt test, I had to fight the 2 black belts I did not want to fight, which one of them was the 6'8", 7th degree black belt, and his solar plex is the height of my head. So it was just like a boom, boom, boom. And the other one was this big prison guard. And we have a slew of black belts, but those two specifically were the ones I did not want to fight. And those two were the ones I was assigned to fight. And once you get in a ring with somebody like that, you know, Hollywood producers aren't so scary. You know? Because they're not going to hit me, you know. I mean, they're just going to tell me no, you know. So okay, you know, I mean, I've had my nose broken, my ACL torn, my ribs bruised, like, you know, my toes broken. I can take a no. No is not that big of a deal.
Okay, that's
that's
a big part of your course too, Gary. No,
yeah,
is an open door.
you know, she's hit on a number of things. I think one other thing that I would just add, and I know Jeannie does this and has talked about it in a number of her writings, which is, you know, surround yourself with one or if you're blessed to have several people who are proximate to you, you know, meaningful to you, who believe in you. Have people who believe in you and support you so that you have a chorus, an echo, a dimension of your life where you feel good about, you know, because that story about slavery by another name is, I think, a metaphor for everything that is so great about being in this experience called life, and it's that brazen courage to chase down your passion like it's the last bus of the night. Because you talked about failure, and you know, it took me years to realize something that's so obvious it's almost embarrassing to say aloud, which is I failed as much as not more than anyone that I know. I mean, my life is just one long string of failures, so that's great. But it took me a long time to realize that failure is an idea. Nothing bad ever happened. Not one bad thing ever came of it. I never, you know, bled because of it. No one ever thought less of. I thought less of me because of it. No one else, right? And I think it's really important then to have, you know, people who echo a very positive and supportive view of you, along with all these other things that you're describing. And just remembering life is a process. It's not an event. It's not a black and white, you know, A or F affair.
And also too, I mean, you think about the stuff that, you know, this is one of the things I tell my kids, and you know, is that I have never grown, you know, as a human being because I've had a success. I've only grown when I've had a failure. And to me, it's just like our characters. I mean, for me, it's very similar. Life is very similar to a movie or a book. You know, like I am the hero of my story. And so if I fall down on the floor, I mean, we do this on purpose to our characters. So why would we expect that it's not going to happen to us? You know, and so the only way you get your character to grow is if you break them and have them crying on the bathroom floor. So, and you expect your character and want your character to have learned some sort of lesson so that they can go achieve their goal. So if you aren't going to learn that same lesson, then what was the point of being on the bathroom floor? Like, you know, did you like that? How's that working for you? You know, you know. So change, do something so that you get up off the floor.
Yeah, I mean, the floor is where we start. Well, when I say that, I mean it's really where we start to grow up. You know, where we really start to embrace our true self and our capacity and live and lean into it. Because, like you know, you said one of your things. You know, one of your blogs starts rejection and lots of it, and you know, and it's true. It's like get comfortable with it. Get outside your comfort zone. Don't make a big deal out of it, because the ones who survive and succeed are the ones who embrace it. Yeah.
Keep talking. I'm just going to grab my power cord.
Go.
It occurred to me I didn't plug in. I'm right here.
Okay, I'm going to bring up a question that Michelle Hall is asking. Hey, Jeannie, can you comment on how Twitter has impacted your ability to establish important relationships in the biz? So this is from Michelle in Oklahoma.
Hey, Michelle. Michelle and I follow each other on Twitter. Twitter basically, that could be a whole hour right there. I mean, Twitter is, everybody has their social media, you know, soft spot that really works for them, like their sweet spot. For me, it's Twitter. It's that fast pace that, you know, Twitter is just 10 minutes at a time. So don't stress yourself out if you're not there all day long. Just pop in, spend, you know, a few minutes there and move on. But Twitter, I find, in general, as a social media platform, a place where people go professionals, writers, just people in general who are okay and comfortable with being approached. Whereas other platforms, you need to approve people. You need to, on Facebook, you need to accept their friend request. On LinkedIn, you need to accept the contact. But on Twitter, unless you have protected tweets, which I would not do unless someone was stalking me. Like if you ever see my tweets protected, you know that I have a stalker. But because it's social media, it's about connecting with people. So why would you protect your tweet so people can't see it? It doesn't make any sense to me. So because that kind of mindset comes to the platform of Twitter, it makes it easy to talk to people. And there's certain behavior how you should conduct yourself. Like, don't pitch somebody, don't immediately say, hi, I've got the script, can you read it? That's like, you have to develop relationships. So Twitter is kind of like, think of it like a cocktail party. Like if you're at this cocktail party and you're meeting people and you're socializing and talking to somebody over here and talking to somebody over there, and how you would engage with somebody at a cocktail party, you typically get to know them, introduce yourself, know them a little bit more so that they want to know you more, maybe outside of that party. You exchange business cards. Then you can take the business card home, you look up their site, and the business card is really your Twitter profile. So you look up at the Twitter profile and you see if they're interesting, you click on their website, you get to know them a little bit better. One of the things I try to do on Twitter is always pay it forward. Share information I think that my followers would be interested in. Sometimes I'll put out a random tweet that I say, okay, today go find somebody in your feed who you don't know, who you've never talked to before, because I've got like 29,000 followers. I obviously have not talked to all of them, but every once in a while I'll just pull a follower out at random and I'll go look up their website and I'll get to know them a little bit and I'll tweet out maybe a blog post that they wrote. And then they feel like, wow, she went to my site, and I will tweet it out if I think that my other followers would be interested in it. Our community, I prefer to use the word community more than followers, because that's what it really is. It's a community of writers or a community of people who want to connect with other people. So I've had great success finding mentors, writing partners, friends, and let's face it, like as writers, oftentimes our family does not understand us. And these people who are writers, they get it. They get that, we need to write to be in a good mood. They get that whole aspect of being a writer and life of a writer, much more so than a lot of people's families do. So Twitter is sort of like, I call it my water cooler. It's the place where I like to go and hang out. And you get to pick your colleagues. You get to pick the people you hang out with and work with all day. And if you don't like them, you just unfollow them. And you can't do that at work. So it's nice. Occasionally block, but I haven't had to do that often.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Yeah, you find people. I do. People are pretty responsive. People on Twitter, yes, it's more so than most.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways you can engage easily, unobtrusively, by retweeting them, asking honest questions. There's so many. It's a very easy platform, and it's good.
Script Chat was born on Twitter, and it's a fantastic platform for writers. It's Sunday nights at 5 o'clock LA time, and it's for 1 hour. It doesn't cost you anything. Twitter's completely free, and we have to get you as a guest on there, Gary. We have
I'd love to.
Yeah, we have guests who come on and they talk about screenwriting, either the craft or the business, or even crowdfunding, independent filmmaking, anything that writers can do that might help them in their career or in their craft. And it's a way to get, for 1 hour, we don't always have a guest, but we have guests quite often. And we've had Jane Espenson, who wrote Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Battlestar Galactica, Game of Thrones, David Hayter, who did X-Men, Doug Richardson, who did Die Hard 2. We've had a lot of professional screenwriters and also people who are instructors. and you know, Richard Botto, who runs this great social media site called Stage 32. Have you heard of that?
Oh my God! Everybody lately has been telling me, and yes, in
Oh my
fact,
God.
yeah, it's an amazing site.
You should have RB on your show. He is a hoot and a half. Love him. He's like a classic New Yorker. He lives out in LA. But great guy, and what he does on that social media platform is fantastic. It's sort of like I think he describes it as LinkedIn and Facebook had a baby, and it's Stage 32. And it's so you can have it's a lot like a merging of both of those platforms, but it's all people in the creative and film industry, everything from makeup artists to writers to directors to, you know, independent filmmakers, producers, people have birthed projects there from, you know, making collaborations from all around the world. People get screenwriting jobs there. People post jobs for writers. It's a really cool community.
Fabulous. I would love to have him on. I noticed that it was every conceivable kind of craft in one space, which I think is really extraordinary.
Yeah, it is cool. It's very cool. Social media is amazing as a way to...
It is, and there's a story that I'd like you to share with the audience, which goes back to Twitter, because you wrote a short film that got produced called Impasse.
Yes.
And would you share with people how that came to be?
Oh, well,
amazing story.
I am known for being a bit of a voyeur. Like, so when I go to like a coffee shop to work, I am all about, when I write, a lot of my stories are all about characters. Like, it's really all about crawling in that character's head and understanding them. So when I go to coffee shops to work, I'm always watching what's going on around me, listening to dialogue, watching people's body language, you know, the people that they're with, wondering what's their story, you know, and so one day my daughter was on a date at her then boyfriend's house, and she didn't have her license yet, so I drove her. It was this freezing cold day. It was like 29 degrees. I remember that specifically because I was wondering, why is it not icing or snowing? Why is this rain coming down? And it was just this raw, miserable day. And I'm sitting in Starbucks waiting for this date to be over, and I was writing, and I noticed there was a couple next to me, and then all of a sudden they were gone. And I was sitting by the window, and I looked outside, and I thought, oh, there's that couple that was just sitting there. And I didn't hear them say anything at the table, but they were outside, and it was freezing cold. And I remember after about 15 minutes thinking, why are they out there? Like, what are they doing? It's freezing out there. And I was just watching their body language, and I started tweeting because, of course, I was procrastinating my writing. So that is the danger of Twitter. So I start tweeting, you know, I think this couple's having a fight. And so people start, you know, and they know that I like to give like play-by-plays, you know, of what's going on around me. So I start tweeting out what this couple's doing, and I'm tweeting obviously can't hear them, they're outside. So I'm tweeting their body language and their actions, and people would tweet me back, oh, I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm getting my popcorn, you know, no, kiss her, you know, like because they were clearly having an argument. And I tweeted out the whole thing up until, it was about maybe 45 minutes, up until she drove off. And he went the other way looking very sad. And everyone was like, wow, you know, and my last tweet was to my friend Michael Beckemeyer, who is a director, and I said, I think we have our short film. And you never know who is watching your Twitter feed, because then I had like 2 agents send me direct messages on Twitter afterwards saying, when you get your novel done, I want to read it, because what you accomplished in 140 character bits had me on the edge of my seat, like waiting to see what was going on. So Twitter is a great tool for storytelling, you know, and for also editing. You have 140 characters. You know, you've got to say what you want to say in 140 characters. I mean, you could keep talking, but for the most part, each tweet should stand on its own. So it's a really good exercise for writers too. So yeah, we made that film.
and you made the film, and it's a wonderful. There's a wonderful moral. Like you never know who's paying attention. You don't know
Yeah.
who's listening or talking about you in your absence.
Yes.
So
I'm
it's
sure a lot of people talk about people.
yeah, a lot. Hopefully
That's
positive.
what those direct messages are for. You do that on the side, not publicly.
Yeah, but it's this is the game. You and I were talking the other day about how important it is to let people really get a sense of you, your essence, who you are as a personality, what you care about, why you do what you do, just to put your personality, your thoughts out into the world. You don't know how they travel, but it's how people feel curious, come to be more curious and want to take a step toward you.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's back to like what I was saying earlier, that if you want people to follow you and be engaged with you and want to help you, like I wrote a couple articles about finding screenwriting mentors. It's about making them want to help you, and how do you get somebody to want to help you? Not by asking, will you help me? Will you help me? Will you help me? It's by just being the kind of person that they say, you know what, I really like this girl. Like I want to see her succeed, and I'm curious about her, and she seems so real, and then they get to know your writing a little bit. They go look at your blog. Like there's like Unknown Screenwriter, he's known on the internet world, and Doug Richardson. I mean, that's how they both got to know me, because they started reading my stuff and just becoming curious, and then they would talk to me, and then it all snowballed from there, where they ended up reading my script and really becoming great friends and giving me great advice, and it's all because I wasn't one of those, like I really tried hard to just be who I am, because the last thing I ever want to happen is people to see my presence online and have this perception of what they think I am. And then they go to Screenwriters World Conference, or they go to meet me at some meetup in New York City when I'm in New York, and they think, God, I thought she was like this, but man, she's really nothing like that, And then I start, like when I see people, even little things, like if I see like their profile picture is completely different than when I meet them. If I meet them and they're like 20 years older and 20 pounds heavier, I'm thinking, what else are you lying to me about? Like it's this simple thing is just your profile picture should really reflect who you are and what you look like. And I do have glasses. See, in my profile picture, I have glasses. I really do. And the only reason I took them off is because they're so dirty. Like I can't see the screen. So I took them off. But normally I do have my glasses on.
I think, Gary, we need Jeannie to show us what she showed us in the green room.
Oh my gosh, great, good memory. Yes.
Okay. This is from one of my friends, Jacob Kruger, who has a screenwriting school in New York City, and he has these stickers, and he also has T-shirts made up for them. And I just spoke at Jacob's school a couple weeks ago about social media for screenwriters. But let me see if I can get this so you can see it. Can you see it?
Yes,
right
we
there.
can.
Yeah. It's a great little motto. So I love that. When you see him out like speaking at conferences, he's wearing that T-shirt. It's fantastic.
I love it. I love it. So tell us what are I mean, is there anything more that writers? So basically, bottom line, writers should take advantage of social, not just Twitter, I suppose, but social media in general.
Yeah.
As a way of getting into community with other writers, to get their voice known, to let people get a sense of them.
Yeah. And I think it's sort of like whether you live in LA or you live out of LA, even more so if you live out of LA, because obviously you have that geographic issue. Like I live in upstate New York on 45 acres of nothing. I can't even see a house from my house. And it's a fantastic way to live as a writer, because I don't have all that noise around me. But, am I going to just serendipitously go to the coffee shop and meet some producer? No. And so, but I can meet one online. I can meet one sitting in my pajamas in my house, just typing away and thinking around on Twitter or whatever platform and meet somebody. And, it's how I got my job at Script Magazine. I purposely put in my bio New York, even though I live a couple hours from New York. And so that when the then editor of Script Magazine, Joshua Stecker, came to New York, like, hey, let's go grab coffee. And I was like, okay. And I, drove down. I mean, I took the train down there for a couple hours. It was $100 cup of coffee. But, it was totally worth it. Now, Josh and I are friends, and he ended up giving me my column on Script Magazine, the Balls of Steel column. And, and that's how I got introduced to Script Magazine's world and eventually became editor. But all because of social media. And there's in today's age, there's no limits to it. And people should really, it's again one of those, like, giving up the fear, like, what is my tweet going to be? What is my first tweet going to say? I mean, it's a little daunting, but don't take it so seriously. Just say what's on your mind and keep it real. It's a tweet, for God's sake, like,
how much harm can you do with 140 characters?
Well, I've seen people do a lot of harm.
All right, I'll take that back.
I say to my kids, like, don't put anything out on social media that you wouldn't feel comfortable seeing on the front page of the newspaper. I just happen to be comfortable with a lot of things, so what I would put out is maybe a little more bold than others. But just think about your comfort level and do that.
Good, sage advice. Jeannie, one of the things that you told me about your early writing partnership, and it reminds me of something that I think is really, really a crucial issue, which is about really investing your time, being willing to move on and write about things that you increasingly deeply care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I call it identifying your most powerful story. Whatever, there's a lot of different ways to say it, but this slavery sounds like that was the sine qua non. That was the moment you sort of dove into the deep end of the pool. But what would you tell a younger writer about choice of story and about how you allocate your time?
I would say that you really have to trust your gut, and I think that's something a lot of people don't do. And when they're first starting doing something new, when you're first becoming a screenwriter, first doing any job or anything, it's hard to trust your instincts. And for me, it was about believing in myself enough to pursue something that I wanted to do, not what somebody else wanted to do. And that like with my personality, was very diseased to please. So I was working on things, not just in writing, but in a lot of things in my life. I was noticing that I was doing all these other things because that's what people wanted me to do, not what I wanted to do. And pursuing Slavery by Another Name was really the first time I did something I wanted to do. And back to that ageism thing, like, you're never too late. Like, I think I was probably 45 maybe when I started that project, pursuing that project, and I've been doing that one for 6 years. So you do the math, but I think, and the beauty of getting older is also recognizing that you're willing to take more risks. You understand that you're not so fearful and scared of other people and what they think, but and also recognize that when you choose a project and you work on something, whether it's an adaptation of somebody's book and having to go after those rights, or whether it's just a story idea you came up with yourself, to be fearless and write it in a way that no one else could write it. And trust your writer's voice, that you have to really believe, I'm the only person who could write this. Like, because they talk about people stealing your ideas or whatever, who cares? Go ahead, I dare you. Steal my idea, because you will never write it as well as I will write it. And it's when you have that, because it was my idea, so I know where it came from, and it came to me for a specific reason, because it touched something in me that will make me be the one who has to write it. So I'm never worried about people stealing ideas or anything like that. I don't care. Knock yourself out.
That's a question I was going to ask you. On social media, how much of an idea would you feel comfortable sharing with strangers who could run away with something? Is there a limit that you're willing to open up with on an idea?
I see people doing stuff like, posting all their log lines, and I don't do that in general because I just don't, because for me there's no reason to do that. Um, I am I am a little distrusting in life, like I've been burned a few times by people. Um, so I don't put as much out there as other people do when it comes to my work. When it's something completed, when it's something I know that I'm the only person who could tell this story because this was based on a life experience of mine or something, then that's different. Then I might be a little, like with Slavery by Another Name, I'm not nervous. I have that up on my website because, there's nothing anybody can do with that. It's an adaptation of a book. So, but I don't, in general, like tweet out log lines or things like that, just because it's not my style either. Like, I don't really think anybody would care what I'm working on, like what I'm writing, what I have in my file of writing. Because it's not done yet. When it's ready to pitch, then I'm ready to pitch it. Then I'll tell the appropriate people what I'm working, the people I'm pitching what it is, not just the Twitterverse. So I'm not a big person about sharing a lot of my ideas. I tend to keep them to myself, especially movie titles. If I have a really good title, I'm not putting that out there.
Titles are tough. They're worth gold.
Yeah, they're tough.
I'm superstitious about titles myself.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think it's all about being very intentional in targeting people who could add value to the conversation for you. And I agree. I think the best stories are the stories that no one else could have written. If it's just a commercial marketable idea, great. Then perhaps there's certainly a place in the market for it. I'm not saying no. But I think that the idea that is so personal, so uniquely you, born of who you are in the world, that once it's written, I used to say to my clients, they were like, well, I don't want to show it to anyone. No, let's drop it from a helicopter, but let's put that helicopter right over the proper buildings, right? So yeah, I think, if there's no specific outcome that you could imagine, which is like putting a log line out into the Twitterverse or the social universe. I mean, I'm not sure what the purpose of that would be anyway.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. Like, what's the point? Like, do you want to see what I have in my refrigerator too? It just doesn't. There's no point to it. I don't get it.
Was that a question, Bethan?
Yes, it was about how much does Jeannie feel comfortable sharing her ideas with being so active on social media?
Yeah. I guess I don't. So that's the answer.
Not very.
Not very.
So, Jeannie, what would be? What would be Jeannie's? What would be the gist of a letter that you would write today to your 19-year-old self?
Well, I did that with Dear New Screenwriter, which is one of my favorite Balls of Steel posts. And I haven't read it in a while, so I don't remember exactly what it says, but I do remember that the last thing it says is open a Twitter account, trust me. But basically, I think all the advice that's in it, and I don't know if you have it, Gary, because we were talking about it yesterday. You can remind me what I said, but it's based, a lot of it, the theme of it all is really believing in yourself, making sure your product is really good before you go out with it. Like, don't go out prematurely with stuff because of the importance of making a first impression. That you're going to fail and it's okay, and that's a really big, just regular life lesson, that it's okay to fail. What else did I say?
Let me go through it and prompt you, because this one blog post, it's called Dear New Screenwriter, and for those of you who have any curiosity, please go read this. This is a gem. So I'll go through it and you can comment on each of these. Every one of these lines is worth a book. Rejection, lots of it.
I'll get on it.
Rewriting, hate it now, but learn to love it.
Yeah. I did not like rewriting, and you know why I didn't like it? Because all the stuff I was working on was stuff that I wasn't passionate about. And so to go back, so that if you don't like rewriting, the first clue should be that first little red flag that goes off in your head should be, maybe I don't really love this project. And it's okay to just put it over there if you don't love it. And that's probably something else I said later on. Like, it's okay to not.
The next one is that. It's don't love your story. Be willing to walk away and appreciate that you learned from writing it.
And I would say that also goes for people too. Like, be willing to walk away from people who piss on your flame and who don't believe in you. It's the same thing like with your stories. But also recognize that every single person that comes into your life and every single project that comes into your life, you should be grateful for and learn from, and just, you know, and even thank that person. You know, I really learned a lot from you, but I need to go over here. And with your script, it's like, I learned a lot by writing you, and I'm a better writer because I had this experience writing it, but this is not, but look at it realistically, you know, like, your baby might be ugly. Like, it's, you know, that it's not marketable, or it's not something that anybody's going to really want, and it's not written well enough, but you don't love it enough to keep rewriting it, so it's okay to just shove it in a drawer and say, but I really paid more attention to characters this time, and maybe even read it and say, what did I learn from doing this? Because sometimes when you really recognize it and think, what did I learn from doing this, it's easier for you to walk away from something because you've acknowledged and validated the lesson that you needed to get from that, and then walk away.
Move on to an idea that thrills every fiber of your being.
Oh, yeah. Because then it just makes it fun to sit down and write if you're, like, totally jazzed.
Yeah, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Need lots of scripts to get an agent or manager.
Oh, yeah. You do need to write, you know, and maybe not have a lot of scripts that are completely polished, but by writing a lot of scripts, you're going to learn enough to write that one great script that's going to attract their attention. And I know what the next one is.
Yeah, don't need a rep, need self-belief and learn to pimp yourself.
Yeah, and then having said that, you don't need one. Like, you know, like it's, I mean, at some point, I don't have an agent, you know, I don't have a manager, and but I get my work in front of a lot of great people because, you know, you try to be real and you try to put yourself out there, and it takes a lot of work. And believe me, there are some days I wake up and I say, you know, I think I'm sort of over this screenwriting thing. You know, there's some days you wake up and you're just tired. You know, I would love to be able to call my agent or manager and say, hey, you know, so how's it going? You know, like, you sold that thing yet? You know, but instead I'm the one knocking on the doors, doing all that work. But when you're the one doing it, the benefit of that too is you're the one then making the connections. Your agent manager is not making those connections, that you never have their email address. I have the email addresses of all of my connections. And so that's like the other benefit of being your own pimp, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, the filmed entertainment world shouldn't be that different from the rest of life. And I always love when talent says, you know, well, my agent didn't get me any work. It doesn't ever get me work. I get all my jobs. And that's sort of correct. That's the way it should be. That's the way we work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, my father helped me get my first job in the dog licensing bureau when I was 16. But he doesn't help me get my jobs now. You know?
Wouldn't have a lot of luck at it. So
no.
Next, pardon?
No, I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
Okay, get over your fear of pitching, failure, success. I love that. And I love the next.
Okay, here you're back. Maybe
I'm
not.
sorry. Okay. The next one I love. Takes 8 years to become a great writer unless you quit.
Yes, and that one is something that was a great conversation I had with Unknown Screenwriter. And I remember exactly where I was when we had the conversation. I was walking, and he was saying to me how, you know, in his opinion, it takes 8 years. And at that time when we had that conversation, I had been a writer for about 8 years. And he had read various drafts of Slavery by Another Name and said, you were really finally getting it. You know, it's sort of like being a martial artist. Like you start off learning how to punch, learning how to step, learning the stances that keep you strong. And then then the more you do it, the more fluid you get, the more graceful it becomes, and you don't even have to think. They call it muscle memory. You know, I get up and I can do a form that I learned 10 years ago without even thinking about it. All of a sudden, I'm in a completely other zone, and all of a sudden the form's done. And writing is the same way. And it took me 8 years to get my first black belt. You know, like it's just you have to do something over and over and over again so that you're not thinking about it so much, that you're just doing it. Yeah, that's my experience. What do you think about that? Like,
I agree.
I'm going to interview you now, Gary.
No, it's, you know, I used to be a long distance runner. My knees don't want me to do it anymore. But you know, we all know about a runner's high, and it's that same thing. You know, and it takes time to build up to that and to get into that zone. And when you're in that zone, it's almost effortless. It's just there's a level of flow, a level of fluidity about the experience of creating or working out or whatever it is. And I do think it's the same as Gladwell talks about, you know, outliers. It takes that 10,000 hours or whatever that number is. I don't know what the number is. Yeah. But I do think that there's when you separate the wheat from the, you get to the point where you are so studied that you just sort of engage on a more intuitive level. You're freer because the body knows what to do. The mechanism knows what to do. So yeah, I think it does take. I used to say it was a number of scripts. I don't think that's true. I do think it's a period of time.
Yeah, where it certainly can be achieved earlier for some people who pick things up really fast. I pick stuff up really fast, but I still think it took me 8 years to really get it, to just get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, screenwriting is at best, you know, at a minimum challenging. It's not an easy form of writing. I think different forms of writing take different lengths of time to, you know, for different people to master. But yeah, whatever it takes is what it takes. But the point is, it's like martial arts. It's like so many things. Everybody on this call can remember something they've done over the course of their life, whether it was playing an instrument or being, you know, involved in some particular sport, where their practice was daily. And that's the key. The key is to be persistent and consistent at whatever you're choosing to care about. Yeah. Yeah. And then you'll find, if you stick with it, you'll find out if it's 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever number of years, you'll find out.
Yeah, but if you quit, it's definitely not going to happen. You know, so you just have to not quit, because then at least there's still a shot that it'll happen.
And what we learned last week, and what Jeannie has said several times today, age doesn't matter. You could start at any time. It's not as if it's too late that you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. It's a really important point.
Yeah. Absolutely. We know so many great artists who didn't start painting until they were at an advanced age, or same with writers, same with so many, and probably anything but the NBA. We won't start playing hoops in our 70s. But a lot of these things go to that. It's, you know, Jeannie, you write, be true to yourself, believe in yourself, be steadfast, strong, determined. All of these things come back to, and it says start working out. You know, it's about that sort of, it's a level of commitment across the board. The commitment to be bold and reach out, to let yourself be known to other people, to target them and not be random, to sit and write every day a little bit, whatever that is, whatever fits. But to be,
people think, like, I remember when I first started, like, you know, there was a period of time, my early 40s, I was in, like, really great shape. And I remember somebody said, because I was training all the time, and somebody said, oh, it's so lucky that you look like that. You're so lucky that you're thin, or you're so lucky that you're so petite. I'm like, really? Like, there's no luck here. This was hard work. And even now, when people will say to me, how did you get 29,000 followers on Twitter? Well, because I talk to people. Like, I did the work to engage. It doesn't just magically happen. Like, there is no such thing as an overnight success. Some people just make it look easy, but believe me, they worked a really long time to get to that overnight success. You know, so it's like not, you know, it's recognizing and acknowledging that it is hard work, and that there is no easy answer. I wrote a blog post about the magic trick to selling your screenplay, because people will and still do send me those 140 character direct messages on Twitter, or they'll shoot me an email saying, how do I sell my script? Okay, that's an easy question to answer, you know, I can just tweet that out, you know. So I wrote a whole blog post where basically it boils down to the magic trick is that you have to work really hard, you know.
All of these, yeah, so I'm just going to tickle through the last several because I see the clock, we're running out of time. But I love it. Trust your radar more than you trust.
Oh, yeah, wow, that went fast.
This is great. Trust your radar more than you trust others to know who and what is right for you. It's self,
yes.
You know, the thing speaks for itself. Reputation is everything. Amen.
Amen. Because you can't read that.
No, that's a one-time deal, right?
Yep.
You spend your lifetime building it,
Yep.
your lifetime. That's an enterprise. And that may be the most important thing any of us do. You know, by whatever work we choose to do, however we engage with the world. Drop ego, be open to notes.
Oh yeah, I love notes. Because the people, and recognizing that the people who are giving you those notes just want you to be better. They're not trying to beat you up. They truly just want you to be better. It comes from a good place.
Yeah, and they should be thanked.
Yes.
Whether you agree or disagree is irrelevant. You should be gracious, you should be appreciative, you should be just so thankful to be in the conversation with people.
Yeah, and that somebody read your work, you know?
Yeah, that's what we all want, right?
Yeah.
Someone, look at my project.
Yeah.
This is important. The next line says, go to a pitch fest. How important is it that we show up?
You're cutting out, so I'm missing this really important thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says, go to a pitch fest. Is the next one.
Oh my God. Like, okay, that's a whole other conversation, but I want to tell you that on Script Magazine, every month I have these freemiums, these free downloads that I put out, and I think this one will literally be live tomorrow. And it's a webinar that I gave, a free webinar, and I'm putting it up on the site. It's like an hour long for everybody to watch, and it talks about the benefits and values of conferences and pitch fests. And I even take it so far as I give a breakdown of like a whole checklist. These are the things you should do. This is what you need. You need business cards. You need water. You need snacks. You need, I mean, like all the stuff as if I'm your mother and I'm preparing you for your big trip, and so that you can really get the most out of it in terms of networking, meeting people, pitching, getting them to say, yes, I want to read your script, and then following up like even a list of stuff to do after the pitch fest. And it's a free webinar you can watch on the Script Mag on the site, and that should be live probably tomorrow. And if you follow me on Twitter, I'll be tweeting it out at JEANNE VB, JEANNE, V as in Victor, B as in boy. And but that says, because I know we're about out of time, so just go watch that. It says how great they are. And I've made so many incredible connections. Like Zach Sanford, who's one of our co-founders of Script Chat, I met him at a pitching event in 2007. He rejected the script, and I was there with my then writing partner, and he read our script but then passed on it, but we still became friends online, and we ended up birthing Script Chat together. So it's years later because I maintained a relationship with him online. I mean, there's so many things that you would never even imagine could happen to you by just attending one, and you know, also the validation of just pitching your work and practicing pitching your work. It made me comfortable pitching executives anywhere, you know.
Really briefly, we're getting a question. What is a pitch fest? Can you sum that up really briefly?
Yeah, it's sort of like speed dating. Like there's a room of 100 executives typically, and they're all at tables numbered, and then you're outside in a line with a corresponding number, and you run in and pitch. You get 5 minutes to, so you shouldn't pitch more than 2 minutes so that you can have a dialogue with them afterwards, and they say yes, they want to read it, or no, they don't, or they say to you, I'm not interested in that one, what else have you got? And it doesn't take more than a few minutes for them to know if they're interested in that script. But most importantly, the reason I like going to them as opposed to blind queries, which, oh, Gary, we didn't get to talk about your advice on blind queries, but
okay.
But the reason that we do that is because, you know, when you want to go to pitching events, because they're also deciding if they want to work with you, not just if they want their script. So it's the best way to show them who you are.
The best magic in the universe happens knee to knee, face to face. And
Yes.
what's interesting is, you know, a lot of these, they're not, oftentimes, I should say, pitch fests are appended to an event where there's actual learning sessions or, you know, people speaking from a stage, what have you. And what's amazing to me is that not everybody in the world should show up for these. If it's worth traveling to these things, because the people who show up to teach, to speak, or to take pitches, either way, these are self-selected people who have raised their hand and said, I'm really interested in discovering new personalities, new talent, new opportunity. I'm here on my weekend. I'm here, you know, I'm using my precious time to meet you or be available to meet whoever shows up. So you really should be taking advantage of that. And as you know, Jeannie just said, the advantage of not having representation is you're in direct rapport, direct relationship. You have their email, perhaps their phone number. You develop that over time. You have the opportunity, the invitation to do that over time. No better way to instigate those new relationships than showing up in person. Jeannie,
I'm going to put Jeannie on the spot and ask if you would please come back in the next couple of weeks and we can have a part 2 of this, and also to talk more about Twitter, because you seem to have that nailed and so much great information for everybody. Can we get you back on?
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah. Bethan, she's stuck with us, and so we'll have you back, and let's make a list. So Twitter, put down query letters. That's actually a really important topic. We'll cover a bunch of new stuff. Jeannie, thank you. So I want to remind people, because your blog I find so refreshing. It is so raw and authentic and truly your personality. And it's so rich with really good ideas. Go to, it's on the screen, JeanneVB.com.
Yeah, but the other one is the one on Script Magazine's website, which is
if you go to
Balls of Steel.
Is what?
Balls of Steel. But there's links to it on my own blog too. You can find it there. That's
okay. But if you go to Script Mag, there's a I think the tab says blogs, and if you drop down the drop-down menu, I think Balls of Steel by Jeanne Veillette Bowerman is the first, maybe the second. I forget. It's near the top.
Yeah, it's up there. I'm the editor. I have some perk.
She knows people who know people. So be prepared to spend some time and get hooked and read about 10 or 20 of these installments, because they're great.
I'm actually writing one today. After I get done with this, I'll start writing it about Naked and Afraid and bats, and how that relates to being a writer. But I'm excited to write that one. Hopefully that'll be live this week.
I missed that. What was the title?
I don't have a title yet, but it's about the show Naked and Afraid, and also bats, and how that relates to being a writer. I've had an interesting week. Let's just say that.
All right. That's called teasing. I'm already curious. Okay.
Writing naked with bats.
So
we're getting audience saying, please come back, Jeannie. So if you don't mind, I'll give you an email tomorrow and try to book you in for next week. Great. Thank you.
So Bethan, was there did you have any announcement was there something you wanted to add before we go?
I have put in our YouTube channel so you can catch up. If you want to watch this Jeannie chat again from the beginning, you can watch it from our YouTube channel at any time. Also, all the past shows that we've done over the last 4 weeks. I've put in our Breaking into Hollywood, the master course link, and we have a 10% discount for our super special guest night, and that discount is Jeannie 10, so JEANNE 10. If you want 10% off the master course, and we covered so much of what's in that with Jeannie tonight, so a good segue there. But Jeannie, thank you so much, and I will be reaching out to you tomorrow. Lovely to meet you. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you for your generosity and how much you care about screenwriters in general.
Thank you, Gary.
And for being our guest.
Thanks. I had a great time.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Next time, limoncello.
Oh my God. Okay. Next night is drinking game.
Yeah. Here's a teaser. When you come to the part 2, I will give you the limoncello recipe. How's that?
Okay. That's a must-attend event. Okay.
I know writers.
Jeannie Bowerman, you're the best. Thank you so much.
Great to talk to you guys.
All right, thanks, Bethan.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.